Scott Frost says his QB race is too close to call, but when will somebody finally stand out?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every single day. Joining me as he does every single week is my good friend Andrew Gluchov, purveyor of all things UCF, graduate of UCF, writer for UCF, just UCF everything all the time, all black and gold everything all the time. Andrew, we're talking Scott Frost and his QB race. We have covered extensively on this show the McKenzie Milton effect, what we feel like UCF needs to do with QB development, with Dylan Risk moving on and EJ Colson no longer being in the picture here. You've got Jakuri Brown, Taven Jackson, and Cam Fancher battling it out for the QB job. Frost was at Media Days, and he had some comments on his QB race when asked. So I want to get to a couple quotes here to start the show. Then we'll talk about who wins the job and why, and then do a little panic level check. Let's start with the quote. Scott Frost said, in spring, we saw a lot from all three of them that would lead us to believe they can be successful. I'll tell you the truth. I would go into the season with any one of the three and feel good that they can go win us games. He went on to say that he's anxious for somebody to really take the next step forward and take the lead. We're not just going to anoint anyone. It's got to be earned. And however long that takes, that's how long it takes to figure it out. But the sooner it kind of reveals itself, I think the better it will be for continuity and reps. That is UCF head coach Scott Frost talking about his QB race. I got to tell you, the whole we feel good about all three winning us games thing, no, you don't.
That's coach speak, and Scott Frost is really good at that.
I would open the floor to you, but that is the coachiest coach speak I have ever heard. I absolutely hate. I don't know what else I would have wanted him to say. I cringe when coaches say we think we can win games with all three. No, you can't.
No, it's one of those cases where it's like you don't have anyone standing out. Here's the truth. If there was, even if it was if two guys were standing out, the wording would be a lot different. And I'm not sold at all on this, that we're in a position that to see Scott Frost make a definitive choice on his quarterback. He would have already done it by the end of the spring, the spring practice session. We're getting ready to see the team go into fall camp. It's coming soon. First game is the end of August. I mean, you're running out of time. You've got to get a number one lined up there and start, gelling. It's not like you're playing your FCS, opponent first week of the season. You're not. They're the second team. You still got to play Jacksonville State, who is an FBS squad. It's not like Kent State, which is a glorified FCS squad. Actually, they're a bad FCS squad playing in the FBS level. Jacksonville State had a great year last year. They lost a lot of talent after they lost their head coach, but it's not Kent State. So you can't completely blow it off. Even though I think UCF is the far more talented team, you gotta start getting these guys, someone to gel with the offensive line, the wide receivers, the running backs. You got to get your line counts right. It's quarterback is, as is such a work intensive position mentally.
Yeah.
You can't afford to shortchange the amount of time. And remember, two quarterback system. If you can't figure out who you got, if you got two quarterbacks, you have none. You need to lock in on someone and make the call. The fact that it's too close to call means like everyone's not doing a great job. That's what I get out of it. It's like everyone sucks. It's not, they're not doing enough to stand out And while we see, flashes of it, on the practice field and videos and stuff, those are curated. That's little bits here and there. That's stuff you see, like NFL teams, show various plays during training camps and OTAs and whatnot. But the truth is that's like 1 or 2 plays out of like 30.
Yeah.
So you're seeing these little pieces, but that's not telling you the whole picture. And I think Scott Frost made it very, very loud and clear that he is not impressed with what he's working with. And as you know, this is a transition year. He's got 2 guys in the pipeline, Kane Archer and Drake Carr, Carr coming in, and, hopefully they both stick out their commits. And I would not be surprised if, despite the fact that Taven Jackson and Jakuri Brown are 4-star recruits, I would not be surprised to see these 3-star guys, start, coming up the pipeline and start pushing. If a guy like Jackson, who's going to be here, he's technically, got another year of eligibility. So I'm assuming he's going to still be at UCF. If he doesn't, rise up, he's going to have some competition real soon.
Yeah, I agree. Look, you brought in competition from the portal. You went out, you got Cam Fancher, you got Taven Jackson, and you expected some level of competition when you brought those guys in. So you expect those guys to go back and forth. But, at this point, I think that his language has been very honest. I think his tone has been very honest about where the QB race stands, in that nobody stands out at this point. And you've got to figure out, your offense is going to take the personality of your quarterback. In every system, your offense is going to take the personality of your quarterback. So if he's a good passer, right, you will see the system kind of follow the strengths and the characteristics of the quarterback. And you got to figure out what part of your playbook you can run. In the spring, they talked about the transition in terms of guys learning another language and trying to get fluent in this new language. Well, part of that fluency is the chemistry between your QB and your wide receivers, the chemistry between your QB and his line, and the communication between the QB and his line. I'll be interested to see what kind of leash Scott Frost has on his quarterbacks based on their understanding of the system. And, that understanding, it definitely affects how much of the playbook that he uses in year one, right? So you see a truncated version of the system when you have a quarterback who maybe can't run all the plays, or doesn't know all the plays, or or doesn't do certain things well.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to pick and choosing. Okay, well, this guy does well at this thing, and this guy does well at this thing, but it's not good at this thing. It's going to come down to prioritizing. Okay, which things do I want to prioritize? Is it tempo? Is it accuracy? Is it pocket presence? Is it legs? What skill set does Scott Frost need to put front and center to help pick out a quarterback? Because it sounds like no one's the complete package.
Yeah, I agree. Look, somebody's got to do something to stand out and win the job. We'll talk about what that something is right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Guys, Monarch Money is a great solution for managing your money. You ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can feel easier. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat, and it's like having a personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, so you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. Also, if you're managing multiple accounts or managing with a partner, Monarch Money makes that easier as well. To take control of your finances with Monarch Money, use code LOCKEDONCollege, guys, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Take control of your finances today. how does one stand out and win the job in Scott Frost's first year? This is simple to me. The answer to this is simple. The guy who knows the playbook the best, the guy who shows the best mental command over the system is the guy I want to see out there in year one. Because Scott Frost has some simple concepts to his offense. He has some very complex concepts to his offense. But if you're in the playbook and you can be the field general that he needs out there, getting guys lined up in the right place, understanding this, and if you can be the guy that understands the system so well and sees the field so well that he gives that quarterback the latitude to audible and get in and out of bad plays, that's your guy, right? Like, that's the guy that I think wins the job here. If any of them could, I don't know if any of them are going to be able to do that at this point, but certainly that would help give you an edge on your competition here. If you're Cam Fancher, Taven Jackson, and Jakuri Brown. Jacurri, we know he needed to improve accuracy with his arm. But I mean, he was a 4-star recruit, I believe, but he's 5-star athleticism, though, man. That guy can run the football. But when the chips were down and they had to throw to get back in games, he was airmailing balls and throwing picks.
That doesn't work.
That severely limits you late in games, right? Taven Jackson and Cam Fancher, I think, were deemed to be improvements in that regard. But what are your keys here for winning the job in your mind, Andrew?
Well, the problem is the perfect package is a guy who's dual threat. The signature quarterback for Scott Frost at Nebraska was Adrian Martinez, and he could run, he could throw. It wasn't strictly on him that they lost games. There was a lot of issues with bad play calling and whatnot. A whole different story. But you look at he wasn't overly utilized until his fourth season. They didn't throw the ball a whole lot during his time there, but when he did, he completed over 60%. I mean, his third year, his junior year, he completed over 70%. Granted, it was only in 7 games, only threw it for 1,000 yards, but it was efficient when he did it. He threw for 2,800 yards in 2021, which was Frost's last complete year at Nebraska, and he ended up transferring to Kansas State for his senior year. Martinez did, and didn't really do a whole lot there as far as utilization, but when he was used for throwing the ball, he did okay. He's kind of more like a Jakuri Brown, but more accurate. He's got legs. He had at least 500 yards rushing every year that he played 5 seasons in FBS. Usually was breaking 600 yards. I mean, there's, had 13 touchdowns in his last year at Nebraska. I mean, for a quarterback, that's really good. Mm-hmm. It's like ridiculously good. His problem was turnovers, but again, that was Jakuri Brown's problem. But that's the type of guy that Scott Frost wants, is that dual threat quarterback. The problem is, as you've established, Jakuri Brown couldn't hit the side of a barn at times. I mean, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
1 touchdown, 4 interceptions last year. I mean, that's just 52% passing completions, less than 400 yards in the times that he played. That's not going to get it done. I mean, but 400 yards rushing on 53 carries. That's pretty good. So I know he's been putting in a lot of time to work on the accuracy. I think a lot of it is mental. With a guy with a 4-star talent, you have the physical gifts to be great. At this point, it's mental. You get happy feet, you get stressed under pressure, and you start forcing things. You make bad decisions, and this is another case where Brown looks good on the practice field. How's he going to look in game situation? Very different things. It reminds me of a UCF quarterback from way back. I'm going to turn the time back about a decade to Pete DeNovo, who started UCF's first game in 2014 because he practiced really well. Well, game time came against Penn State, and he wet the bed. And that was pretty much the end of Pete DeNovo. Last about a half. I mean, it was bad. It was so bad. Just absolutely atrocious. And it just goes back to, guys may be so physically talented, but they just have the mental fortitude of a cardboard box, and a wet cardboard box at that, and just fall apart. So yeah, the dual threat's important, but if you can't mentally be in the game and make smart decisions, you can't win this job. That's what your running backs are for. So that's where a guy like Taven Jackson may have a slight leg up on a guy like Jakuri Brown. Brown, better talent with his legs, but his arm and his decision-making, not as good. Taven Jackson, obviously limited college time, but very highly touted coming in, has just better numbers in general than Brown did last year. A little bit less in the yardage, but was way more efficient and made way less mistakes. So I think when it comes down to it, it's all about mistakes. Can you make less mistakes? And I think that's what's going to be the big difference between who Scott Frost goes to and who doesn't.
Yeah, I agree. If you can limit if you protect the football, you're going to have a huge leg up, I think, on the competition. There's got to be a balance between playmaking, but the calculated risks. Are you the quarterback that tries to force the ball into tough windows consistently, forcing highly dangerous plays often that are unlikely to result in positive plays or likely to result in turnovers? One thing that will definitely sink UCF offensively is turnovers from the quarterback position. And the guy that protects the football, right, and plays within the system, I certainly will have a leg up on the other two. But look, is it time to panic? Is it is this language we're hearing from Carlos, nobody standing out, cause for panic? We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCF. Is it time to sound the alarm, to blare the horn, to say, oh my God, we don't have a quarterback yet? I'm not sure that it is. However, I will tell you, you've got to narrow down reps here fairly quickly. I've covered teams so far this offseason that, going into the offseason, some coaches have only had two quarterbacks to focus on because the third quarterback wasn't coming to the summer. And it was a blessing to have like a true freshman and your highly rated transfer. And that's it for the spring. Because what happens a lot is they go into the spring with five guys, and you already have eliminated two in your mind before spring has started, but you got to pretend to get everybody reps for at least a couple practices. And then you narrowed it down to three. But ultimately, it can only be two getting a majority of the reps. And if you're Scott Frost, you've got to eliminate one of these guys here pretty soon. So Jacurri or Taven or Cam, somebody's got to fall. Not to scout team exactly, but you've got to at least have a 2A and a 2B at the very least, I think, after a couple days into fall camp. Or I would be a little panicked if they can't narrow it down I'm talking about two practices in the fall camp. Somebody's got to be eliminated from starting.
Yeah, you cannot treat UCF's quarterback room like the Cleveland Browns are treating theirs. It's not going to work. As you know, the Browns have a long history of outstanding quarterback play. No sarcasm there. The truth is, something's got to give. And as you said, eliminate someone and start narrowing it down. There's only so many reps that can go to each player with the rest of the first team. You need reps, And if you're dividing them up too much between, 3 players, then you're not getting enough reps, with the first team to build that gelling. As far as the panic goes, I'm not as panicked as probably some are, mostly because we kind of already knew this was going to happen. Like Taven Jackson, he was, viewed as a good transfer, but he wasn't like the top, like 3 levels of transfers. I mean, he was kind of a mid guy that, just was stuck behind the bench and was looking for an opportunity. We know what we got out of Jakuri Brown. And then Cam Fancher, sure, he's got a lot of playing time, but I mean, you went to Marshall and Florida Atlantic. You're not playing against Big 12 defenses. It's a big difference, and at that, you didn't overly excel. His year against FAU was rough, was very rough. I mean, he, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1,500 yards. I mean, that's nothing spectacular. Little just under 60% completion percentage. And as we've talked about before last season, 60% is like a benchmark. If you're throwing under that, I don't expect your team to be winning. So if you're throwing 59% during the season, doesn't bode well for your team. Florida Atlantic had a rough year. I think Fancher's going to end up being the 3rd string guy. I think he's just hanging around just because the others just aren't stepping up. It's really going to be a Jackson versus Jakuri Brown thing. But some of the panic is also tuned down a little bit because of how talented the running back room is. Look what they had to do last year. Obviously, there's no RJ Harvey, but Jay Nixon, he's a dog, man. He's going to have a great year. You got Myles Montgomery, who's a great change of pace back. I expect them to go 1-2. And then you got those 2 really talented guys in Gage and Swint behind them, the redshirt freshman and true freshmen, young guys, but really big and talented. I think the fact that you have that strong running back room can kind of temper some of the panic that comes out of this questionable quarterback room, because the other thing is you can use the run to set up the pass and create lower risk situations for your quarterbacks.
Yeah, you can. I agree 100%. Look, they'll narrow it down here, and I think it's gonna be fun to watch. I think UCF this fall here. McKenzie Milton has continued to receive a lot of praise this offseason, not only from recruits, but from what we're hearing coming from inside the program here. The process seems to be working. But if you're Scott Frost, you're trying to raise the talent level, Andrew, so that this discussion becomes easier next offseason. You have a better starting point, and quite frankly, you're playing with the guys that you recruited and you developed and that you see inside this system. So they got to close the talent gap between UCF and the top of the league. Going to be fun to watch that, my friend. I want to thank you for joining me today on today's episode of Locked On UCF, guys. Look, tune in tomorrow for more Locked On UCF. But if you made us your first listen, for your second listen, go check out our friends at The Portal Show. Our guy Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, and find us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.